Next up on the number one tee.
Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori, and today we are joined with professional teaching instructor. Why did I say that? That sounds so weird. No, teaching professional. I typed it up wrong, Trillium. How are you today?
I'm great. I knew what you meant. I think people knew what you meant. We're good.
You know what? We're here. We're just winging it today. And you're also the director of golf at Woodmont Country Club in Maryland. How's that?
I'm the director of instruction.
Okay. See, that's why I wanted to confirm with you, because I thought you were director of golf. And I'm like, wow, I wonder how much time she gets to teach, because director of golf really doesn't teach much. They're running the show in the back.
Especially at our place and running the show in the front. We've got 2 golf courses. We have 1,600 members. We have 500 acres and a par 3, 5 putting greens, a 4-acre short game area. I mean, it's like a 5-ring circus. There's always something going on.
And I saw on your Instagram stories the other day, you had a group chat going on with the entire golf pro shop. What was going on over there?
Yeah, we've got a big group of people. We have a big staff. We have a great staff, and everybody has, a facet that they're looking after. And so the most recent chat was, there's a dead geese on the 9th green or the tee. Yeah.
Now, was that because of a golf ball hitting the poor goose?
I don't know. But I had a student who hit a shot. He topped the drive, didn't see the ball, and a bird fell.
We have a lot of pigeons on our on our range at our course. And, one goes down occasionally because they're all there. And then as soon as it dies, the hawk comes and grabs it. It's like, it is nature at its fullest on my range in Arizona.
It's still sometimes hard to see. As long as they're not suffering.
Okay, so what's your schedule like in the summer? What an operation you have going on there. So you have 2 courses or just 1 course in the par 3?
We have 2 courses and a par 3.
Yeah. So what's your year-round schedule like? Can you golf year-round in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, we're the middle Atlantic section. So we're a pretty mild climate. It could be 60 degrees in the middle of January, or there could be snow. So you just really don't know. One of our courses is zoysia grass. So the grass goes dormant in the cold weather. It just goes to sleep. The North course, which is our championship course, is open all year and people can play. So as long as you don't mind snow, you can get out there. I think of it as people's first club, like it's their home club, which typically means people are using it a lot in the shoulder season. So for us, a lot of people will head out to better weather in June, July, and August. Like they might go north, they might go, no one's going south because it's too hot, but Colorado, a lot of people go to Colorado. And then in the fall and spring, it's really fabulous. So our season, April, May, June, July, August, September, that's kind of our zone. And we have hitting bays. I've got an indoor hitting bay that hits out. So if it is cold, you can see ball flight into the driving range. We have a full-time teaching professional. He also has hitting bays. The 2 of us are next to each other, plus our staff teaches. So we've got 6 or 7 on staff that also teach. And then we have interns that are getting involved as well. So we have at least 12 professionals on staff that are kind of getting their hands and helping people at whatever level that person is and whatever age they are.
Oh my gosh, I am jealous of this operation. It sounds like quite a thing. And I've actually never heard of like interns being there. What a great, and these are younger college players that are just looking to get into the business.
Yeah. So it's quite a fabulous opportunity for both us and them. So the professional golf management is the major, and there are a couple of really good programs out there. There's Methodist, Penn State, and among many others. So part of the professional golf management program would require an internship. So a 3-month internship. I believe programs sometimes change and are vary from school to school, but you'd say in the summertime, you do 3 months if you're a freshman, and then sophomore, I think 3 months, and then you do a 6-month. So after your senior year, you do a 6-month or maybe, I think it's a 6-month internship. And so that typically after you graduate, you would stay at that facility once you have a chance to kind of get it. But the internship program is great because people get a chance to see where would they fit in best. Do they want to be at a public facility? Because that's a totally different operation than a small private facility. Maybe it's a resort, maybe it's a semi-private, maybe, whatever it could be municipal. So you get a real good taste of how the business is different in different facilities and, quiet, busy, and everything in between.
And what did your timeline look like?
Since we're at the top of the hour, we've got a lot of time. I'll give the quick version. I've told my story a bunch, so I don't want to bore anyone that's heard me speak a bit. My story is a little circuitous. So I actually didn't think I was going to be a golf pro growing up. I played golf. It was my first sport. I played in Vermont, and the season's very short. Skiing and ice hockey, not quite as seriously, but I definitely skated my whole life. So winter sports were kind of, gymnastics was a big thing for me. So when I got to high school, there was no golf team. It was a club, and you have to drive quite a few, a while. So I decided to pick up lacrosse, played lacrosse in college, and golf was my summer sport. So I played lacrosse for 12 years. After I graduated college, I played on the U.S. All-Star lacrosse team, went to Japan, played on some fun showcase teams like the Southern California's national team. And that was 4 years I was on that team. I had a good time. And then I kind of dawned on me when I was about 20 that, where are you going to find everyone to play lacrosse? I was in college in Los Angeles. I knew I wanted to be in the movie business, or at least in photography or production. I think I was moving along the pathway of being a producer, and I was a media studies major. And then at the time I was in New York City working for Saturday Night Live, and I had an opportunity to go home. My dad had a stroke, and my friend got married. So I went home, I played golf while I was there, and the head pro said, "Hey, Trill, my assistant just left. Why don't you be my assistant?" And I was like, "Your assistant in golf? What does that even mean?" And he said, "Don't worry, I got you." So I was living in New York, but I thought, I haven't really lived home for a while. My dad had a stroke. Maybe I should just ride out the summer. I'll be his assistant and give it a go. And that was an incredible opportunity because I realized I really love this. And he'd look at the head pro, look at the one, he'd be like, "Hey, there's some ladies out on the range. Why don't you give them a clinic?" And I'm like, "John, what do you mean? I play, but I don't know how to teach." He's like, "Nah." So I would never do that to anyone now. Just say, "Oh yeah," randomly give them a clinic with no training to help them. I mean, I don't think that was ideal for anybody, but it did get my gears kind of going and my thought process thinking, I had never had a female in my life when I was learning golf. And when I played golf as a junior, it was all boys, like a couple of girls, but I was just playing stroke play tournaments. By the time I was like 10, 11, 12, you're keeping score and you're just moving to the next shot. There's no scrambles. There's no clinics. There was nothing like there is today. Mm-hmm. So I thought, maybe I could check this out. And that's how I got started. And so I loved it. I stayed, and I asked him, what do golf pros do in the winter? And he said, well, they go to Florida. I'm like, okay. So he said, don't worry, I'll help you get a job. So my first job was in Florida, outside operations, bag drop, getting the clubs out of the trunk, cleaning the clubs, getting them and that's how I started. And I quickly figured out where I wanted to be, who I wanted to work for, like all of the blind spots that I had, which like everything was a blind spot because all I knew how to do was play. I didn't know anything about the business. So that's how I got started. And I joined the LPGA as a Class A, got into the PGA as a Class A. And then 10 years into it, I went back to grad school, got a master's degree in motor learning to learn about like the neurophysiology behind learning. And here I am. So about 20 years later.
What is the biggest misconception about getting into the golf industry?
As a teacher or as a golf pro? I mean, I think the misconception
the business in general.
The easy thing is everyone thinks I play golf all the time.
And that's just not the case.
That's just not the case. Now, I will say I did teach at a place. I was actually a golf pro. My official title was assistant golf professional. So I worked and taught, but mostly was as an assistant. I had a lot of time to play because it was a very slow club. There were very few members, very few people went. So I had all this time in the afternoon to go peg it up and play. So it kind of depends on where you are and how you kind of work things out.
Okay, so you brought up lacrosse. You played lacrosse also. And I see a lot of golfers, especially that start later in life, like they used to play tennis, or they're still playing tennis, or they used to be a softball player. What is some correlation that you really see from those players? And I've never talked to anyone that played lacrosse before, but it's still really a lot of hand-eye coordination, ball, stick kind of deal. What can you see? What carries over the most when you start to play golf and you used to be, tennis player, softball player, lacrosse player?
Overall, number one, I love it when people play other sports. I still like you if you didn't play a sport, but I think it can only help. So especially if it means that you've put any time into learning a skill, because then you understand there's the grind behind it. You don't just pick it up and say, oh, I just bought a violin, now I'm going to be great. You kind of have to put time. And so sometimes people buy clubs and they think, oh, I'm going to be great. Most people realize it's a bit of a grind, but I think those that have some body awareness, even dance and yoga and Pilates. I mean, I love it when I get, and it's mostly women who are committed to working on their bodies, because they typically have some concept. If I say squeeze your glutes, they're like, okay, I know what glutes, or neutral spine. I know where neutral spine is. Bend from your pelvis. I know what the pelvis is. So I think it doesn't have to be a sport per se, but I think having some background in movement is really helpful. Sports in particular. So I think the thing about tennis, so I've been learning tennis and I love it. Tennis.
Like actual tennis or pickleball?
Actual tennis, like the real deal when it's going far.
Wow. Okay. All right. And how's that going? And what kind of correlation are you seeing?
The best thing personally is that I'm putting myself in this position of a student who's really just sucking, I suck, but I'm working. I'm never going to not work hard. I'm going to tell you that. So, okay, I'm never going to be great. I'm in my mid 40s and I'm learning sport for the first time. I know I'm never going to be great at tennis, but I know that if I work smart about it and I'm taking lessons and I'm really trying to get the steps and actually listening to what my coach is saying and doing what he's saying. And so I'm not just like, oh, I got this, I'm just going to peel out and do it on my own. No, I'm not doing that. I'm actually doing everything he says. And I think I'm seeing gains that I see students also kind of go through. Like a student's just listening and saying, okay, I'm going to do what you say. They will get better. It's when people are like, oh, I'm going to wing it. I'm just going to go play with whatever swing that I'm doing, even though it has 12 different flaws in it. And it's like, okay, well, those 12 flaws are creating risks meaning like mishits. And so if you don't work on that, of course, you're going to have some shots that are errant along the way. So back to tennis. So there's another thing about this. If we just kind of look at this from the actual sport and the difference of the sport, tennis, the ball it's live. It's a live ball, And so you're not sitting there after you hit it thinking like, oh, let me just work on my elbow getting in a couple times and right, like ooh, get the angle going. No, like you got to get freaking ready. And so I love that about tennis is that you've got to move fast. But tennis players don't have to do that when you play golf. Slow it down, stop, think about it, get it right. Like take that breath and compose yourself, then get into the shot.
Absolutely. Did you watch the Wimbledon this past couple weeks?
Did I watch Wimbledon? No, I still don't quite understand the scoring. I mean, I'm still, I'm not.
And that's okay.
I know that the ads going back and forth, that's not normal.
But you're enjoying it. Like you're playing it, you're watching it. Your Instagram feed is probably slowly becoming tennis themed, I would imagine.
Now I'm just to a point where when I'm watching tennis, I can appreciate some of the things they're doing. Whereas I never watched tennis before I was so into golf. Like I watch golf and I see 100 things. Like, if you and I brought some beginners to a golf tournament, we'd be great hosts because we could be like, okay, do you see all these 12 things that they're doing? And all they did was like walk to the tee. Like, this is what they're thinking. This is how,
yeah.
This is why it's cool. And it's like the guy didn't even do a single thing. If you're a beginner, you don't know anything that's behind the scenes. And so that's where I'm just starting to see a little bit of that. And that's making it fun to watch.
And especially this year, I was watching it and I was like, that looks like fun to go there. Like that, this was the first year where I'm looking at all the outfits and I'm like seeing the atmosphere and really like the way it feels. It feels like the Masters to me. Like it just feels really special. And I'm like, I think I need to go. I'm like, it's time. It's time to figure out like how that looks. Cause I haven't even ever looked into it, but.
Or how that Pim's cup tastes.
Exactly. So, okay, well, let's get into our topic today. I do want to talk about the evolution of, so you've been in the business for how long? Can you remind me? Is it 20 years? Let's touch on it now. How has the evolution of women's golf, like, what does that look like for you in the past 20 years?
Yeah, I think you and I spoke very briefly about Titleist had a panel on this and I moderated the panel. And I love that Titleist brought this conversation up too, knowing that most of the audience would be male pros, just to put it out there that this is not the same for us as it is for you guys, because you're the only one. So for me in Vermont, there really were no kids that played and there were no females that really played. There were a few. So when I got kind of going with this, there was a woman who was 20 years older than me. So I was 20, she was 40. And then we had a friend who was 60. So 20, 40, 60. And we played every Tuesday, 3 of us. And we had so much fun. Those were my girlfriends. We even went to the Dominican, just the 3 of us. Girls trip.
I love it.
But there were I knew no other women that played golf at all. So talk about having nothing else in common. Like nothing. Yeah. But I really liked them. Obviously, I mean, personalities work, but it was golf. So I think that's changed a lot. Now we had a girls' clinic over COVID when everyone was home and no one went to camp. So we had like every girl imaginable between the ages of 9. We even took 8-year-olds to 13. We have like 25 to 30 girls. Wow. That was so heartwarming. I was very conscious from the beginning of being seen as the shop girl. And I love clothes. So I don't mean to disparage someone who is, we've got great merchandisers. We have 3 on our team that are merchant. We have an amazing group of women that are merchandisers and they do a great job. That just wasn't my lane. My lane wasn't that. And so to get the, and usually the girl in the shop is the one that knows more about clothes. Mm-hmm. And frankly, if you're going to ask an opinion and you walk in, you probably should ask my opinion, not Jeff, like
Jeff does not know how long that skirt feels when you have it on.
Yeah. As someone who's building my career and wanting to really get into the craft of teaching and helping people get better at teaching, I had to really define my role and my credentials and my expertise and how I was perceived. And that took me extra. I think that it's extra work than it would have taken a guy, because the guy gets the benefit of the doubt. So I did everything I could to learn, and then that was easy for me because I love learning. But also at the same time, I was conscious of making sure that I had my Class A in both, and that you couldn't say, well, you have your LPGA, but not your PGA. Therefore, you're not as high as we are. Mm-hmm. I did all kinds of, there's like all these little certifications that you can get, these 3-day things here, there, and everywhere. So I just did all that stuff. So, and eventually, by the time I kind of caught my stride and pulled my nose away from the grindstone at times, I realized, I really actually am more credentialed than a lot of my colleagues.
And you saw the growth of women coming into the sport, not only just teaching, but also playing.
From the player standpoint, I was very fortunate to have jobs at clubs that were really wonderfully open to women. And it's probably not an accident that the head pro would hire me, because they wanted to grow the women and women's participation and have a woman on staff just to kind of stand in solidarity with women that are out there and not to feel outnumbered.
Yeah.
So I really respect I really respect all the men that I worked for who were director of golf. Dave Young, who was at Sleepy Hollow, was fantastic. Steve Archer at Quail Valley was fantastic. And Jim Fitzgerald at Chevy Chase Club, and David Dorn, who hired me as the director of instruction, which was the biggest deal, I think, because that title is not often held by women.
Well, that's fantastic. And I appreciate you being a female figure at your club, not only at your club, but also out there. I mean, you're regularly doing social media videos and teaching not just people in your club, but also all over the place. So I appreciate you putting in that work for sure, because that's a whole nother level of being uncomfortable, putting yourself on video and putting yourself out there.
Having a daughter too, I have a young daughter, and also looking at so many girls that I've taught along the way and thinking, or guys and thinking, you know what? It's good for you to see a female, in a strong female who can guide you and not just see the men. So I thought, as like a little bit of a personal responsibility to help other people along the way, whether they're trying to be teachers or they're on the track to be professionals themselves. Not that I'm a perfect role model, but I'm conscious of it at least.
Well, let's get into getting better, faster, and smarter. When you thought about this title of the show and you outlined kind of the things that we were going to go over, I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of my female friends out there that play golf. There's a lot of them that really do want to get better. You have the section that are just going out there for fun. They really don't have the drive to get better. They're using golf in a different way, and it's not necessarily to compete. But then there's a section of women that really want to get better, and they have that drive. And I see them out there practicing, and they're pretty consistent. They're golfing consistently. Like, everything looks consistent to the natural eye, but their handicap index kind of just stays steady. Like, you don't see, there's a lot of women out there that do want to get better, but they just stay where they are. And I think to myself, I'm like, what is it? What is it that's not clicking?
Yeah.
Is it like, what's going on? Why can they not get off this plateau? So when we were outlining today's episode, I was like, this is the episode for them. I really think that you're going to unlock some things that might just get them to kind of go to that next level. So
I think you put that in a great way. You kind of frame that perfectly, because I see the same thing. Golf can be whatever you want it to be, and I'm in full support if you just want to participate and you want to be out there with your friends or your husband. But then there may be a time where you click into a mode where you think, okay, now I want to get better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not you. Maybe maybe you've always wanted to get better, and you're out there playing. And like you said, you're kind of hitting a plateau or a wall where you're shooting the same scores.
So what do you commonly see new players do that they can improve upon, whether it's their swing or practice or even their preparation, maybe even course management? What kind of trends do you see there?
Okay. So I'll start with the first. I'll answer that second, and I'll start with the first one with the people that are plateauing. I'd say right off the bat, if you find that you're nearing a plateau or you're not getting your scores up where you want them, start keeping stats. Mm-hmm. Start paying attention to what's actually happening when you're playing on the golf course. So this is why I signed up with Arcos, and I'm plugging them because I love the company, because the company actually keeps stats in a way that's really non-invasive. And I'm kind of a purist. I like to carry my bag. I don't like to have a lot of gadgets. I don't really listen to music. I just like to hit the ball, follow it, and hit it again. So what I like about Arcos is it's on your club and you don't have to pay attention to anything. But if you want, you can. There's all this other stuff. Anyway, after you play, if you find out that, you find some patterns, you find out you've been hitting all the fairways, but you're hitting your 3-wood in every time, we got work to do on either the length of your tee shot or your 3-wood. Are you missing them consistently short left, long right? Probably not long right. No one's ever really long. Are you blading your chips? Where are the areas that you can improve upon? And a lot of people, Although they would like to know, they don't really know.
They think it's the driver that's always the problem. Well,
right.
Probably not. Or, it could not, maybe not.
Because you could look at someone's long game and think, okay, this needs improvement. But then you get out there and you realize, holy smokes, they have no idea how to hit a short shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I start with that. Like let's give ourselves a really honest look in the mirror and figure out where your issues are. Then the next is this kind of misconception or illusion of competency when we're on the driving range, thinking that we're practicing because we're hitting good shots.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Okay, I have no problem with you with hitting good shots. I'm out there, I'm hitting good shots, I'm feeling great. But that may not be what I need to work on. I may need to work on shots that I suck at because that's the shot that's going to cost me strokes.
Okay, so let's back up for a second, though, because when you said that, I'm thinking, okay, there's sometimes I go out to practice, and I'm only really referring to full swing because short game, never really feels that bad. But when I'm doing full swing, there's sometimes it's not going well. Doesn't feel right. It's not going well. And I'm more of the kind of person that's like, okay, let's put the clubs away. Today's not the day. I'm out of here, because some practice sessions just don't feel well. Are you saying more like, okay, maybe grind it out a little bit longer? Or, if you're hitting the ball really well, then you're not focusing on the things that you really need to be working on? Or what do you think about that?
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's like the decision tree, okay, if then. True that if you're swinging poorly and the ball's kind of squirrely, you don't necessarily want to keep on doing that.
Yeah.
If you know why you made the mistake and you can fix it, that's helpful. That's a helpful error. If you don't know why you made the error, that's an unhelpful error and you're not going to learn much. So just staying with this for a second. So let's suppose you're hitting them thin and you're hitting them thin on the toe. Why are they thin on the toe? So we could just always ask why. Why? Is it because your path's a little bit left? Is it because your hips are tight and you're lifting a bit? Is it because, you've hurt your left hand and you're like wincing and pulling it back? Like what's going on to create those issues? And if you can work through it and figure it out, that's really good. If you can't, don't keep hitting. So you're right. Walk away and do something else. But probably a good longer term question to ask would be why did I have those problems? And I need to get to the bottom of it so that I can solve them. Because there are going to be times where I'm on the golf course and I don't have the swing I want, but I just have to make it. I have to make it work somehow. So if I know where my errors tend to be, I can manage them, when it counts on the golf course.
And wouldn't you say too, like everyone has kind of maybe 2-3 big issues that they're always dealing with their golf swing. So if you do consistently get lessons, or even you get, a handful of lessons, you're most likely going over those 2 or 3 items and you can recognize, okay, this is a miss and this is kind of a drill that will help me get back in shape.
It sounds like you've had a good instructor. Hopefully that's the ideal. If you have a good instructor that can help you understand your own tendency, your own landscape, your own, biases, and then also your own strengths, so that you can get back to, I call it like the safety net swing. Can you get that one swing that may not be the swing you want forever, but it's limited length, but at least you can make contact, you can get it forward, you can, maybe it's like, oh, okay, I just have to get my backswing shorter and then feel like I'm more pressure in my left foot. It's like, okay, oh yeah, if I do those things, I can click it back in.
So what are those common things that you see with the new players and then they can improve on with their swing and with their practice?
Okay, so we're jumping back to the new player, someone that's not quite at a plateau, but they're still working on skills.
Yeah.
So bottoming out, I'd say that's the number one. Understanding where the club is going to hit the ground is so commonly misunderstood and erratic. So if you can't hit that spot on the ground in a practice swing, what makes you think you're going to be able to hit the ground when the ball's there? Mm-hmm. So then why? Okay, why is that erratic? Well, in golf, I mean, on the spectrum of complexity, like a simple task to a complex task, golf is all the way on the end of the complex task. There's so many things that have to go right. So that's why I think having a good instructor or a good pathway to building your skill, so you can start to eliminate, all right, I know I didn't sway. I know I didn't lift up. I know I didn't, go down the list. So you kind of work on all those little movements to build a more consistent bottoming out. And notice I'm pretty open on, what that happened. It's not necessarily like keep your head down, keep your left arm straight. There could be 30 reasons why you're not bottoming out. I don't know what everybody's exact issue is, but that's a skill to work on.
What do you see with newer players that when they go out and practice that they can improve upon?
There's so much under each topic. I feel like
okay.
This could be a 20-part series. The skill of the full swing takes some time, but if you can build it and you can get it, blocked practice. So people have been talking about blocked and random practice for years and years and years, but especially the movement scientists, because it's in all the literature, but it's recently come to the surface among golf pros, and then kind of the circles of coaches, and maybe you've spoken about it. I don't know. Block practice is when you try to do the same thing over and over. You have your 7-iron, you're on the driving range, you're going for the blue flag, you pull a ball back, pull the ball into you, and then just hit. Mm-hmm. Same lie, everything. Now, for a lot of people, that is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do consistently. And when I don't practice in a while, that's what I do. I pull out my X club and I just hit to the same target until I can get the feet, get all the movements working in the right way. So I have no issue with beginners doing blocked practice. The yellow flag, not quite a red flag, but the yellow flag is it for those players that have already established handicaps and that are already maybe a 11, 10 handicap and that are looking to be in 5. Okay, you're the candidate who needs to get moving with a different club and a different target and start practicing the way you might play, which is you don't have a bunch of balls over and over and over because you don't really need it. Yeah. You can make contact and the ball's going to go kind of where you want it. So unless you're working on qualifying for like a women's open or like a USGA, event, and you're really working on ball flight and you're really trying to establish a very consistent ball flight, I'd say do your block practice for a warm up and then start changing things up very quickly, and spend more time on the golf course because that's the way you're gonna play. So you gotta work on the skill of adapting to the environment. The environment's going to change all the time. So that in itself is a skill to work on, and you can't do that on the driving range.
And since we've kind of done a separation between newer golfers and more experienced golfers, if we go back to keeping stats while you're playing around, you still think that is very useful for the newer player, correct? I mean, it doesn't matter how new you are, even just keeping greens, fairways, greens, and number of putts could be extremely helpful to get better, even if you just started this summer.
I think so, as long as it doesn't slow you down.
I should say that at the beginning of every show. That is always the caveat. We want you to keep pace of play, for sure.
Gosh, I saw some needlepoint pillow. It was like, play fast, and if you can, play well, but if you can't play well, play fast, or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll play with anyone. I will play with anyone. My group of friends that play, we're a mixed bag of handicaps, but we're all fast players.
Okay, so what are some examples of people who have learned golf quickly? So again, on the opposite side, there's some players that, kind of get to this plateau. They start playing, they get better fast. That usually happens where when you just start something, you start to see results quickly if you're putting time and energy into it. But then they get onto this plateau, and let's just say they're hanging out at about a 20 handicap. Whereas there's some other players that do the same amount, looks like they do the same amount of playing and practicing, but they get down to a 10 much quicker. What's going on there?
So without knowing specifics, I can just guess. A couple of examples I see would be people not really getting the technique that they needed initially. So, for instance, they got pretty good making contact, but they have a huge cast. And the cast, when you release the hands too early before impact, and you kind of blow all the speed that you would have potentially had at the bottom of the swing arc. So you lose speed and you don't have the distance. So then you're constantly hitting from 200 yards in on your second shot. Okay, not many women have a 200-yard shot at our club, let alone, from their fairway wood. So like, what are you talking? You're never going to hit the green in regulation from there. So you build that. You've got to build what it takes to create some speed and to create a swing that's going to give you some distance. I've seen 80-year-olds bomb it with good technique. So I know it's possible. I think it just takes some time. And a lot of people, don't realize they don't have the technique. And then they're like, oh, I can never do it. Well, you can, but it does take some time if you're willing to put the time in.
Oh, sorry. What's the distance that you really want to see off of a tee shot with a driver? Like what distance do you really want a female golfer to get to?
Depends on the golf course. We've got tees that are 5,000 yards. You want to be hitting an iron half the time in.
So yes, obviously depends on the course and the tee boxes you're playing. But are you thinking to yourself, okay, I want you at least hitting 180 off of the tee, like have that ability to hit a driver at least 180 yards?
Our longest hitters are there, and we've got 60 to 80 ladies in our program. And I'd say we've got 5 that can hit it that far. We've got some ladies that are hitting it 100 yards off the tee. And I think that's one of the problems. It's if you can get it to 140,
okay,
130, 150.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's lots of variables, but I just want to put people's perspective in place. So if they are hitting their drives 160, 175, 180 yards, like that's pretty good.
You're doing great. Yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the national average is 130, I think.
So we want to get you to be hitting an iron for your approach shots.
Yeah. And we're talking about speed too. So speed means strength. I mean, I am all over strength right now because I just got a little injury from tennis.
Oh, see, that's why I asked you if it was pickleball and not tennis.
Yeah, so I'm already, getting ultrasounded. But it comes down to strength, and it's not like we're getting any younger. So you just don't have the body that you had when you're 20. It just doesn't stay the way it was when you're 20. You have to work on it, use it or lose it. And we as women often get very weak in the shoulders. So as great as we are at moving our bodies, we've got to stay strong, and the glutes and core and shoulders and forearms, get those forearms going, get your grip strength up. That all matters.
Okay. So the person that's plateauing, they're hitting it a good distance. They're hitting it the distance that you'd really like to see. What's going on there then? I know you said there's some swing technique issues, but is there some short game deficiencies there too? Like some low hanging fruit that they can be working on?
Yeah.
There's gotta be something, because a lot of these players too are on the younger side that I'm seeing. Like there's no age excuse.
So blow ups, right? I mean, I have so many examples of specific people in mind that I can say, that's what that person, this is this, or this is you, so I do that all day long. I give diagnostics to people. So I can give a few of those, like getting your shot. If you didn't hit the green, getting that next shot, not only on the green, but getting it to 10 feet. You don't need strength for that. You don't need strength for a 30-yard shot out of the rough. You just need skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if you get it within 10, so if you get it on the green, that's a 2-putt, and make sure that's a 2-putt. Don't turn that into a 3-putt. So work on your lag putts. If you're within 10 feet, like let's say you're within a flag stick, I know, my potential D1 players, from 100 yards, you better be within 10 feet because you're looking for birdies. Within 100 yards, inside 10 feet. That's a birdie range. So, okay, if you're not even getting on the green, let's work on getting on the green. and getting on the green in a place where you can one putt is even better. I realize that's really hard, but at least give yourself a chance. Now, if you don't have that yet, then work on your lag putts, because that means you're going to get on the green, but you're going to have a hell of a time getting in there in two. So work on those lag putts. So you see what I'm saying?
So let's think again about that 10, 15, 20 handicapper. If there was a formula, so what, like for a week, for a 7-day period, what would you like to see? Is there a certain amount of time practicing? Is there a certain amount of time playing? What kind of, I know everyone's different, but let's just try and give some general look at to how they spend their time and what they'll be doing during that period.
15 to 20 handicapper?
Yeah.
15 to 20 handicapper. Okay. So be sure you can get off the tee. So let's say practice, do something every day. So number one, something every day. Even if you can't get to the range and get the outfit on and, show up, do something at your house where you're making motions and body drills for sure. Because without a doubt, that can help. If you have a club in the backyard and you can swing somewhere, do that too. Okay, so that counts. Yeah. So number two would be get on the you'd be on the driving range, and if you're going to spend an hour, I'd spend, let's say, okay, I'm just floating this off the top of my head the way I work with some high schools, like 15 minutes with driver, because people always love spending tons of time with the driver, but the reality is you don't need that many drives. Yeah. And if you hit it squirrely, it depends on how squirrely. Just don't hit it so squirrely that you can't hit your next shot. Like, it just has to be good enough. I use that all the time. Good enough, just good enough so that you can hit your next shot. Your next shot has to be good enough that you have a wedge under the green. So then spend half the time. So 15 minutes driver, 50 minutes with your full swing, and then spend 20 minutes on short shots and then 10 on putting.
And how much should they be actually on the course compared to practice?
So it depends on your course. So if you have a chance to get on the golf course and and throw a couple balls down, like if nobody's behind you, if you go wait late at night, like twilight, but be really cognizant of letting people through, just be really good at that. If you've never let anybody through, drop a few balls down in the spots that are costing you trouble. So skip the drive, go straight to where you would drive, and then hit 3 shots from there. So in other words, use the golf course as a more sophisticated practice area, right? So instead of the driving range, you're like, whoa, it was great, it went up in the air. Okay, it might not have been great if you were on the course. So the course gives you that sense of reality, a reality check here, of how good your skill is. And if you can't get on the golf course, then set up a little golf hole on the range in your mind. So, okay, edge of that tree is going to be the edge and that bunker, and then I've got to be between here, and I have to have it curved this way. Because a lot of times people just hit it and they're like, oh, it's so great, but they didn't even have a target. They didn't really see where the ball fell, and it might not have been great.
And then to actually be out there playing rounds, is that as important as practice, you think, or what kind of?
So I do think it's important to play. Unlike, say, tennis, where it's like, I can't just take lessons. I have to put in, you have to actually play. With golf, if you go out and play without, or if you never play, then you have no idea the context in which you're trying to put this into. So you have to go out and play a little bit, but don't play at the expense of good, hard technical work that you're trying to get done. So if you make, for example, a really long backswing and you're breaking your arms down and you have no idea where it is. And then you spend time on the range working on it. You get the idea. If you go on the golf course, don't just abandon the swing thought. Use that swing thought. You may not hit the ball well because you're trying to do what you're supposed to do. Do what you're supposed to do. Forget the old, let me just do what I'm comfortable with, because that's where people get in trouble. And that's where the fork is in the road, where those that plateau tend to go back to what they've always done. And those that get better adhere to what they're trying to do, and they actually change their skill.
Which is really hard.
Totally.
You're thinking about swing technique and actually committing to what you're working on out on the golf course. It is not easy.
No, it's not easy. And you're in Arizona, right? You never really have an off season, except maybe now it's like 120 degrees.
Yeah, but we can still play. Like if I wanted to go play around, I could play around easily.
Because you're a psycho, or because it's not that hot?
Well, because you go out in the morning and you're always on a cart. Like, I'm not walking by any means, but you go out early, or, even if it is in the middle of the afternoon, you're in a cart. It's not.
So you found it. So you figured a way. So it's not like you're walking and carrying your bag and you're the human out there. And
no way. I would
someone's calling paramedics. So yeah, that's exactly right. So you never have an off season. Like, we have an off season. So our tournament season ends and then everyone's off the hook. Now, we have a whole population that go to Florida, so their whole season starts again. So those are the people that don't really have the off season. I see you, those that don't have an off season. I get it. And this is actually an issue on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour too. They don't really have much of an off season. So if they're trying to make changes, they're doing it mid tournaments. They're doing it on Mondays. They're like, that's a slog. But if you never really commit to it and you never figure out a way to put it into your play, you're not going to change.
Finish this episode off with habits. So, and again, what we were talking about is kind of a good segue into it, because some of these swing techniques that are hurting your golf game have just become really ingrained habits. So what does the process look like on improving your swing, or even improving how you're trying to improving how you're going about becoming a better player?
Changing how do you think? Well, I think it's just being conscious of what the habits are that you have. And kind of, this is sort of full circle to what we originally talked about, is recognizing where you need the work and where you don't need the work, and then being really smart about just recognizing that. And this is so similar to if anyone's ever done therapy, okay, first to admit, like you want to change your behavior, you have to know when you're triggered. You have to catch yourself in the act and then just recognize it. And like, hey, okay, I am now back to my driver and here I am throwing it over the top like I normally do. Wait a sec, I have to do something different. In order to do something different, you kind of have to do something different. And that means knowing what it feels like, knowing how it's supposed to happen. Like, I have to feel like I've got that little pain in my side when I come down, whatever it is, whatever those triggers are. I mean, and I say trigger, I mean kind of like a good golf swing cue trigger. You kind of got to commit to it.
Okay. So what's next for you? You're the director of instruction over at Woodmont. Like, what's next for Trillium? Because you are young, you are smart, you are totally capable of doing whatever you want. So
thanks for saying I'm young. I don't feel.
Oh my young. Gosh, you're so young. Stop it.
So I feel like there's just a lot more to do with the conversation on making changes and behavior changes. So I've been doing quite a bit of my own research into how I can deliver that message in a broader way, and in a way that people can pick up, if they're golf or if it's tennis or if it's just in their own lives. So that's kind of where I have been spending time and what I'm working on stirring the pot.
That's exciting. Are you thinking about writing a book?
Maybe.
Just sniffed that one. And I like it. I like it. I mean, I was looking when I was preparing for the interview, I was like, I wish she had a book to that I can read and digest, everything that you've learned. And again, you are always looking for ways to grow. I can tell. So I know there's a lot of knowledge and experience and your own curriculum that you can put out there in a paperback form. So I'm looking forward to it. Just putting it out there.
Putting it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've written a manuscript with a PhD years ago, like 5 years ago. And we floated it to Golf Digest. And the response was like, this is way too sciencey. You're going to have like 30 people read this and like it. So that took my wind out of the sails a little bit. So I've kind of picked the idea back up, thinking about a larger audience in mind and points that are digestible in everyday life.
All right, Trillium, how can we work with you? I know that you're at a private club, you're in Maryland, but I know that you have some virtual options going on that just anyone can work with you in the future. How can we get in touch with you?
So I have the online program. I'm not live on it. And I know you do something like that, which is pretty cool. Time has just been the problem. I just don't have the time. So I did create a series of videos. There's 20 videos and it's called The First Step. And it's for somebody that's looking to get into golf, that hasn't really taken lessons before, that wants to get a good solid foundation of what to expect, including some swing work, getting some real foundational movements. So I love that. I love that for people. It's not for everybody because a lot of people have already started. So if you've already started and you're already up and running, you probably don't need it. So I don't know, you tell me.
So what's the website? It's just your name, right? trilliumrose.com?
Trilliumrose.com, and there's a link on there.
And then for more experienced players, you have tons of social media. Is most of your content on Instagram, or do you have YouTube also? What's the best place to go and watch some of your content?
Instagram is great. On my website, it's good that you're mentioning this. I should compile links where people can find, because there's much longer form content out there that they can find through my partners, specifically with Titleist. There's a bunch of videos I have on the instructional page of the Titleist website. I should just direct people towards that. And other kind of areas that I've contributed to that's in writing. So I should put all those articles up so people can read more and then just write the damn book.
Honestly, everything you're saying is very relatable because as a content creator, there's sometimes where we have so much content and it's coming out of all avenues, social media, blogs, written, video, speaking, like audio, podcasts, and it's just about us organizing it. And we always think there's going to be a time, a day, a week off.
Right.
COVID situation where we can catch up on everything and make it one pretty package. But most of the times we're just throwing stuff out there, seeing if it sticks and hoping it's all organized in the background one day.
I'd love to visit you in Arizona, and I'd love to meet some of your
Yes.
crew. You seem to be doing great things with these trips.
I already have some ideas in mind, so I will be reaching out very soon. So
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you. We had some technical errors in the middle of it, so thanks for sticking with us. And until next time, I appreciate you, Trillium. Thank you again.
You too. Keep doing what you're doing, Tori. You're awesome.